Every Toy Story movie is unique. And I don't just mean the new characters and plots each one introduces. We're going to see that each one draws on a different set of decades from American media. And this may just explain which one you like best. Toy Story opens with sweeping music, rather like the Americana of Aaron Copland, most known for his work in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s. And as Toy Story begins, we find ourselves immersed in this same classic era of American culture, the 1930s to the 1950s. First of all, our story is about a transition from a Western phase to a spaceman phase. Westerns were a staple of the golden age of Hollywood, and in the 50s, TV was filled with Western shows. Gunsmoke, Wagon Train. We got to get this wagon train moving! But in the 60s, the space race took over. Buzz is like Star Trek, hence his Vulcan greeting. His monologue about Zurg's planet-destroying weapon parodies Star Wars. But even these references feel classic. Star Trek was originally a wagon train on the final frontier of space. And the Star Wars episodes, a callback to sci-fi serials of the 30s, say Buck Rogers. Buzz Lightyear, stretching his arms out to fly, resembles Superman, recalling again the film and classic comics. And speaking of the 30s, notice these nods to classic Hollywood.
There's no place like home.
There's no place like home. There's no place like home.
Toy Story has been compared to Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, the breakthrough that launched Disney animation into film, just like Toy Story did for Pixar. But there's more to this connection, because the people who made Toy Story love classic Disney animation. John Lasseter tried and tried to get into Disney animation in the 80s. He managed to get in on Mickey's Christmas Carol. And like that Christmas special, filled with callbacks to the classic Disney characters, Toy Story is full of nods to old-fashioned Disney. First, notice the abundance of toys in this opening scene. It's like the countless animals around Snow White. These animators are pulling out all the stops to wow us in this new animation medium. Then, Toy Story gets dark.
Let's go home and play.
The descent into Sid's room feels like Pinocchio entering Pleasure Island, and Sid's final horror is comparable only to Lampwick discovering he's a donkey. Andy misses lost Woody and Buzz like Geppetto searching for Pinocchio. Deep emotions of separation and loss. And like these classics, Toy Story has a long escape-chase climax in stages. More generally, the toys share a classic Disney framework of characters who go about their work while the humans are away. There's more. Woody becomes a sort of Alice in Wonderland surrounded by Sid's toys. Not to mention Mrs. Nesbit's tea party. Then there's Lady and the Tramp. John Lasseter even named his first student film at Cal Arts Lady and the Lamp. This framework of toys having an owner and being lost, and again the active climax against a rabid animal, all feel like Disney's first dog movie. Both movies end at Christmas, and notice Andy's last gift.
Wow, a puppy!
In summary, Toy Story processes our grief at losing the classic era, and then, like other Disney movies around this time, brings us back triumphantly to that good old, optimistic Disney classic.
A record player! I haven't seen one of these in ages.
Toy Story was the classic 50s of the baby boomers. Toy Story 2 is what happens in the next generation, when the classic toys leave circulation and become collector's items, when the classic shows become retro fandoms. So Toy Story 2 evokes a new slice of cultural history, the nerdy 1980s and 90s. First, let's review the new voice actors.
They're so adorable! Let's adopt them, Daddy!
Estelle Harris, Kelsey Grammer, Joan Cusack. These all entered the spotlight in 1980s TV and film. Jodie Benson debuted as 1989's Little Mermaid. But then there's the Cleaner, voiced by Jonathan Harris from that retro sci-fi fandom Lost in Space. This brings us to Toy Story 2's love for science fiction. The opening scene of Buzz's space video game is replete with nerdy sci-fi nods. Star Trek, Raiders of the Lost Ark, 2001: A Space Odyssey. These culminate, of course, as Zurg declares,
"No, Buzz. I am your father."
Toy Story was Star Wars Episode 4 and all things classic. Toy Story 2 is Episode 5 and all things 80s. 80s and 90s. Here we have Spielberg's Jurassic Park, which pioneered the use of digital animation in popular film. And this video game console looks like a Super Nintendo, released in 1990. Speaking of which, notice the media that drive the plot. Video games, TV with more than 4 stations, videotape, this geek magazine. This is a multimedia world centered around the home console, the world our Gen X parents grew up in. We might note that these filmmakers are Gen X. And they're very much a part of 80s nerd culture. Just take a glance at the sci-fi fandoms they've reimagined. Stanton and Doctor will populate Wall-E with various 2001: A Space Odyssey references. But in addition to reveling in the media they grew up with, I believe they make Toy Story 2 nerdy for a deeper reason. Its theme of being a parent.
I can't stop Andy from growing up, but I wouldn't miss it for the world.
Science fiction is a fun place to visit, but we all know that nerdiness can go too far. Escaping the real world, building endless collections, and, well, becoming Al. No, I mean this Al. Instead, Woody and Jessie choose not to fly to a galaxy far, far away. Like the Gen X filmmakers at this stage in their life, they accept that their children are going to grow up, but that they should invest in these relationships anyway, rather than trying to stop time. Maybe that's why this 50s Western show is different from what we saw in Toy Story. It feels less nostalgic and more hokey. But it's still what Woody needs to learn, because it's analog. Contact and relationships, not the untouchable perfection of a museum display, or of a digital video game.
I don't need to play. I've lived it. No.
Again, Wall-E will address this directly. I think this is why the credits end not with sci-fi music, but with Riders in the Sky playing Woody's Roundup on their fiddles. This is the beauty of the real world. Not back in the 50s, but now. So rather than flying, Toy Story 2 brings us down to Earth. And in this vein, it faces physical limitations, aging, and disability. This too is rather 80s and 90s, the decades that I would say most foreground disability in American media. A cultural shift observable in the 1990 Americans with Disabilities Act. Toy Story 4 will also feature disability constructively, but we've got another movie before that.
This is from what, 1967?
Lee Unkrich was present as co-editor and co-director of Toy Story 2 and other Pixar films before and since. But in Toy Story 3, he occupies the chair of director, and brings the film a unique flavor, the intensity of the 1960s and 70s. Take this Western sequence. This train resembles the opening of Bad Day at Black Rock. But this is no classic 50s TV Western. This is a crisp and gritty neo-Western, like we get a lot of in the 60s and 70s. The train's demise recalls Bridge on the River Kwai. These are 50s films that feel ahead of their time. Black Rock was even remade in the 70s with Clint Eastwood. Cue Woody's introduction as the man with no name. Our story starts as the few remaining toys contemplate their stagnant relationship with grown-up Andy. Their last plan to revive his affection has failed. We could call this stagflation, like the economy of the 1970s. It feels like so many 70s films that echo this sentiment, as characters just sit around staring at failure. And this tone fits because, in Toy Story 2, we could see the end coming from a distance. Now, the end is here. Like a disaster movie, this ship is going down. Sunnyside is very 70s. A corrupt government of spying security cameras. As it becomes a prisoner of war camp, it evokes not so much the 1940s World War II era, as it does 1960s and 70s renditions of this. The Great Escape, Hogan's Heroes, perhaps MASH. The screenplay just keeps referencing these decades too.
Hey, Mungo, keep your paws off my wife. Yeah, and I would have got away with it too. What for you meddling toys?
But the biggest influence on director Lee Unkrich is Stanley Kubrick. He inserts subtle references like the Kubrick stare. In fact, Unkrich is a leading expert on The Shining, and so he gives several moments the general feel of a horror movie, another genre that surged in the 60s and 70s. The dump resembles... By the way, did you know that the filmmakers originally considered making the dump truck's walls close in on the toys, stopping at just the last moment? To me, that scene would have felt overdone, but it too would have been a 70s movie reference, as Star Wars feels most 70s in the muck and mire of the trash compactor. Anyway, at the dump, it feels like we've been dropped into the dystopia of Soylent Green, overrun with trash, toxic green air, and scoop trucks threatening our protagonists. As for the Inferno, many 70s films culminate the same way, and, in the best of cases, bring us back out on the other side. Now let's look at Andy. The beaver of the 50s, or the Spielberg kid, has reached the age of the hippies, 18 years old, like so many film protagonists of the 60s and 70s.
Tell him to get a haircut.
So again, with Toy Story 3, we see the influence of the era the filmmakers grew up in, and the film archive that most speaks to them, as they bring toys, from the past into the present. Before we explore Toy Story 4, there's one more pattern for us to discuss. I've been arguing that each Toy Story draws on a specific era. Each one also specializes in a different kind of mixing. In the first Toy Story, a lot of the humor comes from mixing language styles.
From the evil Emperor Zurg, sworn enemy of the Galactic Alliance.
Oh, really? I'm from Play School. And I'm from Mattel.
Where are your rebel friends now?
Your Pop-Tarts are ready. All right.
As I discuss in another video, this style of comedy is germane to classic literature and film, such as The Wizard of Oz.
There's a storm blowing up, a whopper. To speak in the vernacular of the peasantry. Poor little kid, I hope she gets home all right.
Toy Story 2 amalgamates not language styles, but media. Record players, magazines, video games, videotape, TV. This is interesting because the movie, ultimately, is about leaving mediation for encounters in the real world. Toy Story 3 mixes film styles. The home video camera, this oval golden glow around the Daisy flashback, jailbreak and horror styles. This too is rather 70s, as variety shows like The Carol Burnett Show lovingly parodied TV and film genres, and as mainstream movies entered a unique experimental phase. Toy Story 4 does a new kind of mixing. It remixes Toy Story.
Ha! To infinity and my foot!
And this associates it most with the era when we millennials grew up watching Toy Story, the 1990s and early 2000s. The license plate of the car that takes Bo away is a reference to the computer code that nearly wiped out Toy Story 2 during production. This isn't the Toy Story nostalgia we find in, say, Toy Story 3. This is nerdiness, approaching Toy Story from a new generation. Director Josh Cooley, who previously worked on Ratatouille, Up, and Inside Out, is what USA Today once called an exennial. He's a sort of bridge between the generations that made the previous movies and 2019. Likewise, the movie employs an unlikely mix of generations to write the screenplay. Let me just say, the dialogue is really good. Stanton was a writer on all the previous films. LaPointe and Folsom represent a new generation. So as every new generation does, this movie takes the themes or values of its parents, if you will, and looks at them from a new angle, like turning over a coin. It playfully reconsiders the series' basic premises.
Well, we're not doing that.
What would Woody do?
Jump out of a moving vehicle.
And sometimes not so playfully.
What matters is that we're here for Andy when he needs us. It's about
being there for Andy, we know.
which means you are going to be there for Andy when he
Who's Andy?
Just go! A good soldier never leaves a man behind.
And he left me behind.
I'm lost. Oh, I'm a lost toy. You're a lost toy?
That's awful. Great.
But this is a remix, not a replacement. It revives great musical cues from Toy Story 2. It gives a couple of nods to Unkrich and The Shining. And it makes sure we don't leave Bo behind. It updates Toy Story to show how sometimes all of us need to find our way into a new era of life.
Be who I am, right now.
There's more from the 90s and 2000s. In the Tri-County area, it's still 2010. Bonnie is starting school right after the summer Andy met her. So the technology is specific to 2010, like this GPS.
Recalculating!
As for film references, we see the Benson dolls move like zombies, evoking the Walking Dead and general zombie craze our generation lived through. And then we have the voice actors. Jordan Peele and Keegan-Michael Key began their incredible careers in the decades we're discussing. The same goes for Christina Hendricks and Tony Hale, and none other than Keanu Reeves, known for the Matrix and John Wick films, voices Duke Kaboom. This character appears to be a Canadian spoof of Evel Knievel, who was inducted into the Motorcycle Hall of Fame in 1999. I remember having a toy like this in the early 2000s. Now that we've examined all 4 films, what does this have to do with which Toy Story movie you like the best?
Will Andy pick me?
Here's my story. My parents and I have different favorites. My mom likes them all, but she will most often reference the first film.
You mean that happy child?
That ain't no happy child.
And it turns out she's also a fan of classics. Classic Disney, classic Hollywood, classic musicals, TV westerns like Zane Grey and Bonanza. My dad prefers Toy Story 2. It turns out he also identifies with the experience of Gen X culture, growing up with home video game consoles, a TV with local stations, new Star Trek, Star Wars, and Spielberg. These are all things I learned about from him. Toy Story 2 was my favorite in my late teens, but now I've shifted to Toy Story 3, and I simultaneously find myself shifting to a deeper appreciation of the 60s and 70s. Not everything, not the horror, but I love the era's innovative aesthetics, hard-won hope on the other side of apocalypse, and as Mr. Rogers would say, important talk about subjects just as relevant today, like the environment, race, and feminism.
Authority should derive from the consent of the governed, not from the threat of force.
So, what do you think? Do you have a favorite Toy Story? Does its historical mood match yours?
That is so interesting.
All that said, no Toy Story movie draws exclusively on the era I'm associating it with. Toy Story 4 makes off-the-wall references like the sitcom Butler Benson, and throws in another 2001 reference.
Open the pod bay door.
I don't know.
So let's explore one final important source text for the Toy Story films. A 1986 television special called
The Christmas Toy.
It's about a playroom full of toys that come to life when the children are gone. The favorite toy discovers that he's about to be replaced by a space toy. Sound familiar? Of course, this sounds like Toy Story 1, but I suggest that the movie that most draws on the Christmas toy is Toy Story 3. Notice the similarities in character design. Phone toy, robot toy, clown toy. The toy on its way to the dump is a train. The bear in charge of the room walks with a cane. And then there's the Barbie-esque dollhouse with a running gag about dressing up. Both movies feature strikingly similar flashbacks about being opened at Christmas. First, Rugby.
Open the ribbon and on with the show. Could anyone ever love anyone so? No Christmas tree.
Now, Lotso. The Christmas toy is slightly outside the time range we discussed for Toy Story 3. But you know, Jim Henson always feels 70s. As I narrate this, we await the unknowns of Toy Story 5. Will it follow these patterns?
What is it?
In the meantime, I hope this essay has given you some background for these films, and some insight into what makes them so great. If you liked this video, check out my family movie blog at nathanmcbride.net.
And that concludes our broadcast day.